This is Caravan to Midnight, and I just want to thank all the people who have tried to help me with suggestions of cilantro, milk, and turmeric, black licorice, vitamin C. Well, two out of 4 is not bad, right? 3 out of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 out of 5. It worked yesterday, but it's not working too well today. But anyway, thanks for your thoughts. Say, it was quite a thing that happened out there at Berkeley, wasn't it? I woke up this morning in complete disgust. I don't like to start the day that way, I really don't. But was that not a vulgar display? Just a vulgar little tantrum. What do these people think they're doing? Now, my personal feeling about this is as follows. To have this incandescently gay Milo Yiannopoulos prancing about to promote conservative ideology is about as phony as NBC now deciding to lean to the right. And that's just how I see it. Oh, Milo, remember, bleep your feelings to that woman who was acting like an idiot. But, 2 idiots together don't make a non-idiot. Now, as far as the gay part is concerned, many of our most well thought of and admired actors and musicians have been gay. But the thing is, we liked their work. We liked their work, and then later if we found out they were gay, it's like, whatever. So let's make sure that the cart is behind the horse, not the horse behind the cart. The blame for this behavior, I think, should be laid at the feet of the parents. College and university is expensive. So I wonder if those, however many zillions of dollars in student loans, are these people really getting their money's worth? Well, maybe. It depends on what the purpose of university, particularly, has now become. Maybe a case can be made for it always being a hotbed of socialism, communism, fascism, Marxism, a blend of some or one or the other, combining to make some sort of ideal environment for the human being to thrive and self-actualize. Or maybe, after all of these ideas have been tried and put to practice, they have failed so miserably. Maybe there's just an irresistible urge for the dog to return to its vomit and try and somehow make it work again. Well, the election of President Trump was and is a devastating rejection of the left, the leftist communist agenda. The reaction of the left throws a bright light, doesn't it, on what we've long suspected, and that is that global communism is still very much alive, and these protesters are the useful idiots that Joseph Stalin called his own supporters. The Russians hacked the election. Now the Russians are behind the unrest at the universities. Well, I think they're going to be hard-pressed to... Now, Trevor Loudon, according to, the creator of The Enemies Within, he's got a new one up on YouTube now. He makes a case for the Russians being behind the unrest. Well, if they are, could some people say, and I'm not justifying this, but I'm just saying after all the problems that we caused in Ukraine and elsewhere for them, not to mention collapsing their economy, in furtherance of dropping the Berlin Wall and, just getting their attention. Who knows, maybe they're not over it yet. But as far as hacking the election, we're going to talk with Jim McCanney in a minute, who has actually done a white paper. He used 4 mathematical components to determine exactly how much of the election was stolen and how much of the election was not stolen. And it was a massive landslide for Donald Trump, but Jim McCanney is going to he's going to put that all into focus for us in just a few minutes. Now, let's take a look at this. This is from The Guardian, and this is written by, it's a good-sized article, Erica Chenoweth. Remember Mr. Bwethawig in the Kentucky Fried Movie? Have some tea, Mr. Bwethawig. Well, this is Erica Chenoweth, and she's the co-author of Why Civil Resistance Works, the Strategic Logic of Nonviolent Conflict. Why am I mentioning somebody who writes about nonviolent conflict? Isn't that an oxymoron? Nonviolent conflict? Okay, we'll roll with it for a minute. She has written this rather enormous article, but I'll give you just a couple of pieces of it. It's hard to identify a progressive cause in the United States that has advanced without a civil resistance movement behind it. What's she talking about? Well, nonviolent resistance has empowered the labor movement, the labor unions, which are killing the economy, and everybody pretty much knows that, although some of the laborers who belong to the labor unions, well, they like being paid a high wage, even though most of them knew they were being overpaid for it, and all the ones that I knew that worked at the automobile plants, like GM in Arlington, and these various defense departments or outfits like Vought Aerospace, Ling Tempco Vought before it changed the name, General Dynamics before it became Lockheed Martin, and numerous other places. They liked it. They liked working on the line out there. They were being paid big bucks for it. Was it worth it? Well, their contention was, listen, we're building jet planes and other stuff for the defense of the country. We're very dedicated to the work. We should be paid a good wage for it. I tend to agree. On the automotive side, same thing. You know, well, people drive their families around in these cars. You want them built right, don't you? Yeah, okay, but $75 to put in 2 bolts every 5 minutes might be a little bit of a stretch, but I get it. Nobody's going to argue with getting a good check, good-sized check. I should know. I was in the voiceover business. The first time that I ever did a commercial, it was a national commercial, and I was broke in those days, and I'm using the word broke. And it was like $3,000. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. But it was true, so. But why not? If I'm helping to sell millions of dollars in product, why shouldn't I get a little piece of change that's like enough to go, I'm glad to get this. So, I mean, I get it. Everybody likes. Nobody says, no, you're paying me too much. No, just don't do it. Unless this is some really ethical individual and it's a one-on-one transaction over, you know, Jim, I'll give you $2,000 for it. No, man, you ain't gonna give me $2,000 for it. I don't want to sell it now, but if I sell it to you, I'll sell it to you for $800. But I'm not selling it right now. That's a different deal altogether. Well, back to this thing here. Nonviolent resistance has empowered the aforementioned labor movement. And let's not forget about the sweatshops where people were, I mean, this is way back in the early days of the 20th century. They were being paid like peanuts to work horrible hours in horribly dangerous buildings, but their work required precision. Otherwise, they'd turn out shoddy garments. So they were right to do it. But, you know, if more is good, then too much is just right, is the attitude of so many people. So it's possible to get carried away. But anyway, I'm going to move away from that. Protected farm workers from abuse in California. Motivated the recognition of AIDS patients as worthy of access to life-saving treatment. Protected free speech. Here's where the hypocrisy in Ms. Chenoweth's article begins. Put climate reform on the agenda. Climate reform. That damn climate had better reform, or we'll protest. Given reprieve to dreamers. You mean the illegal aliens flooding the country? The dreamers. Raised awareness about economic inequality. Oh, you mean this one can't do much, this one can do a whole lot, but this one needs to be paid the same amount of money. Okay. changed the conversation about systemic racism and black lives. I haven't experienced any of that. I really haven't. I'm sure many people have, but we had a black assistant principal at the high school, nicest guy in the world, and there have been several other black people who featured prominently in my life, both in the workplace and in academia. So I don't know about the systemic racism. I think it's just a talking point. And stalled construction of an oil pipeline on the indigenous lands in Standing Rock. Well, that's wonderful. I think they went around it. Who knows? More on that later. Yes, it's hard to identify a progressive cause in the United States that's been advanced without a civil resistance movement behind it. This does not mean nonviolent resistance always works. Of course it does not. And short-term setbacks are common too. But long-term change never comes with submission, resignation, or despair about the inevitability and intractability of the status quo. And among the different types of dissent available, armed insurrection or combining armed and unarmed action, nonviolent resistance has historically been the most effective, compared with armed struggle, whose romanticized allure obscures its staggering costs. Nonviolent resistance has actually been the quickest, least costly, and safest way to struggle. Moreover, civil resistance is recognized as a fundamental human right under international law. Nonviolent resistance does not happen overnight or automatically. It requires an informed and prepared public, keen to the strategy and dynamics of its political party. Political power. Sorry, Freudian slip. Although nonviolent, because I think I see where she's headed, although nonviolent campaigns often begin with a committed and experienced core, successful ones enlarge the diversity of participants, maintain nonviolent discipline, and expand the types of nonviolent actions they use. They constantly increase their base of supporters, build coalitions, leverage social networks, and generate connections with those in the opponent's network who may be ambivalent about cooperating with oppressive policies. Crucially, nonviolent resistance works not by melting the heart of the opponent, but by constraining their options. A leader and his inner circle cannot pass and implement policies alone. They require cooperation and obedience from many people to carry out plans and policies. Now I'm getting to the meat here. In the U.S. on Tuesday, dozens of lawmakers have said they will boycott confirmation votes for Trump nominees. Numerous police departments countrywide have announced they will not comply with unethical federal policies, particularly regarding deportations. And the federal government employs more than 3 million civil servants, people on whose continued support the U.S. government relies to implement its policies. Many such civil servants have already begun important conversations about how to dissent from within the administration. They, too, provide an important check on power. The Women's March on Washington and its affiliated marches, which may have been the largest single-day demonstration in U.S. history, show a population eager and willing to show up to defend their rights. And what rights exactly were they defending other than the right they already have to kill their babies in their bellies on demand? What other right would that be? I don't know what it is. If you do, let me know. Of course, nonviolent resistance often evokes brutality by the government, especially as campaigns escalate their demands and use more disruptive techniques. But historical data show that when campaigns are able to prepare, train, and remain resilient, they often succeed, regardless of whether the government uses violence against them. Historical studies suggests that it takes 3.5% of a population engaged in sustained nonviolent resistance to topple brutal dictatorships. If that can be true in Chile under General Pinochet and Serbia under Milosevic, a few million Americans could prevent their elected government from adopting inhumane, unfair, destructive, or oppressive policies, should such drastic measures ever be needed. Now, well done, well done. Noble effort. Lame, but noble effort. Usage in Hitler's psychological profile. This phrase was also used in a report prepared during World War II by the United States Office of Strategic Services, soon to become CIA, in describing Hitler's psychological profile. His primary rules were: never allow the public to cool off, never admit a fault or wrong, never concede there may be some good in your enemy, never leave room for alternatives, never accept blame, concentrate on one enemy at a time and blame him for everything that goes wrong. People will believe a big lie sooner than a little one, and if you repeat it frequently enough, people will sooner or later believe it. Now, I don't know about you, and I don't. How can I? But I think that just shot an arrow right through the heart of the left's ridiculous argument. And they're not nonviolent. And 3.5%, Miss Chenoweth, is not going to cut it. Not at all. So you go ahead and pleasure yourself with your intellectual ramblings, but in the end, we're going to restore this republic. With you or without you and your 3.5% of lazy, non-hacking, violent, tantrum-throwing, sniveling little weenie titty babies whose safe spaces are threatened, for whom and to whom truth of any matter is a grave threat. And a message quickly to Julian Assange. Julian, screw Chelsea, nay, Bradley Manning. Don't even think about turning yourself in. Julian, you chose this life, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others. This life you chose is a life worth living. So don't give in to the liars now. I mean, when your voice is gone, who will replace you? How long will it take? I know you miss normal living, normal life. But what makes you think that you were not born for a time such as this, and frankly a job such as this? What makes you think not? Manning got caught. Manning worked in secrecy. You didn't. Your situations are entirely different. So you keep doing what you're doing. You, and I'm sure that there are some people who have come on the program that would take issue with me over this, but as far as I'm concerned, Edward Snowden was a man of conscience. If there are enough men and women of conscience in our nation and in the world, these would be the people who will change things for the better. The most dangerous ones are the ones who have abandoned their conscience, along with their character. And these protests against our elected president are an example of those. There's no point in making excuses for people. There is no excuse for violence like we're seeing now, for cops being shot. The Black Lives Matter movement, all that fabrication of, oh, how terrible it was at Ferguson, and that poor idiot Michael Brown, who decides to take a cop's gun away from him and winds up getting shot by it. And the Jesse Venturas, who think there should have been a trial. That's what he said right here on this program. Trial for what? Holder's entire Department of Justice was down there just looking for an excuse. Couldn't find one. Open and shut. But still, remember Ferguson. Yeah, I think that's a real good idea. I think it's a real good idea for you to remember Ferguson. But remember it for the right reasons. If you're a criminal, and a cop tries to stop you, and instead you try to take his gun away from him, and you get shot for it, don't do that. That's the thing to remember about Ferguson. All right, now, in my opinion, one of the greats in academia is Dr. Daryl Hamamoto, University of California at Davis. He's experiencing some serious discomfort, and we're going to speak with him after we speak with Jim McCanney. Now, hold on for this one. This is going to be a big one. You're going to hear things about the university system and about its president, Janet Napolitano, that I don't believe you're going to hear anywhere else. And if you do, I think that's good, because that means they're getting the word out also. But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be very many, and it's certainly not going to be mainstream media that does it. From Maine to lame to inane to insane, we're going to run them out of business. We're going to do that thing about, if you want something to go away, quit buying it. And if they do, as NBC is pledging to do, we're going to go a little bit more conservative. We're going to lean a little bit more to the right. I repeat, they're just trying to save their bank accounts. And I'm going to repeat that a lot. I want everybody to get it. Because you're probably, I don't know if you're absolutely, transfixed to the program right now. But maybe you're doing other things while you listen. But I want to make sure that you hear this. The only reason that they're doing their little change of philosophical approach is to save their bank accounts. That's all. Next, I suppose, the New York Times will try to do it. But so many of these outlets they've ruined themselves because they have revealed themselves in the torment, because they thought they were so powerful they could just roll Hillary Clinton right in there, criticizing her opposing candidate in the most juvenile and vulgar way possible. The leftists saying things like rape Melania. Oh, but they want to march for women's rights. What a bunch of bleeping hypocrites. Frankly, you make me sick. Believe it or not, I really love people. I love them as much as they will allow me to. These people are not allowing me to love them very much, except as creatures of God. But I don't like them worth a damn. And that's just the fact of the matter. So, stand by for a rockin' program. You're going to like this one a lot. And I want to say thank you, all of you who have sent books, so many books, coins, fisherman's mints, suggestions on how to get this throat operating. It was working pretty good yesterday, but it's 30 degrees or so cooler today than it was yesterday. So I'm going down into this. Someone even sent me a little cigarette holder. I could do that FDR thing. Thank you very much. I'll try it. But look, I do love you people, because you've enabled me to do a job that I could only have dreamed of having before. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, I want you to join this family, my family. I want you to join these people, my people, because they're your people too. And if they weren't your people, you wouldn't be watching this video right now anyway. You wouldn't be watching it. So come on, join us. Help us out. The battle's on now. The battle is on now. The lead up to the election, that was preparation for the war that's to come. First shot's already been fired. And the left fired it on Inauguration Day when they made such a disgusting display of themselves. Now, these mugs will not quit. They are backed by big money, Soros, probably Gates, and many others. Bezos at Amazon. Who knows who's the real money behind it? We know that Soros is for sure, and he's getting in trouble. Good. These people who are trying to destroy our republic and turn this into some sort of futuristic vision of a robot population controlled by a brutal artificial intelligence and backed up by brutal, how about just autonomous robot cops that have no empathy for human beings whatsoever. It very well could happen. You're going to hear some things on today's program about the manipulation of the way people think, how they act emotionally through electromagnetic radiation. You're in for a rockin' show this time. You can only see it if we put it on YouTube, which we may or may not. The purpose of a membership is that instead of going out on the public airwaves just blowing opinions out there for anybody to get a hold of and do with what they want, members pay a very small fee for this. Therefore, they belong to an organization where they say what they want. I say what I want. Let me tell you a quick story. There was a famous attorney named Melvin Belli from back in the day, and he hosted a television show called Guilty or Innocent, and they made me the voiceover guy for it. And they thought it would be fun, since I was a voiceover guy and had just finished up my tenure at KZEW-FM in Dallas. They thought it would be fun if I was featured in one of their episodes, so they did. And I was playing a disc jockey, and I was on trial. Why was I on trial? Because I announced a contest over the air. You know, catch the van and get the tickets, right? And somebody tried a little bit too hard to catch the van, and they crashed their car and killed themselves. So I'm now the defendant, and the plaintiff is saying if it wasn't for him giving that announcement, my kid would not have chased the van to get the tickets because he made them so excited by his outstanding promotion of this concert event. My kid got so excited and tried to get those tickets and crash the car and kill themselves. That's why this is not going over terrestrial radio, except in a slightly toned down version on Saturday nights. That's why I'm not with Premier Radio Networks. That's why I'm not on Coast to Coast AM. That's why I'm here with you on Caravan to Midnight. So come on. You claim you want the truth? Well, do you or don't you? If you do, join us. Okay? You'll be treated like a family member because that's what you'll be. You have only my word for it, but you bloody well have it. Stand by.